The night she appeared at his door,
Yes, it's
Matthew
about her
Carter felt the
apartment.
weight of every unpaid bill, every sleepless dawn, and every silent promise he had made to his son press against his chest all at once. The hallway light flickered like a tired heartbeat, and for a moment he wondered if exhaustion had finally started to blur reality. Because the woman standing there was the same woman who had worked him until his hands shook and his spirit bent, the billionaire whose name echoed through glass offices and cold boardrooms, now standing in the quiet of a rundown apartment at midnight. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us how deeply one moment can change a life, take a second right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach hearts that are quietly breaking. Matthew had never imagined his life turning into a careful balance between survival and love. Living in a small town in Ohio, he woke each morning before the sun rose, preparing breakfast for his 6-year-old son Noah, packing a lunch that was always simple but made with care, and then rushing him to school before heading to work. His job was a contract position at a massive logistics firm headquartered in Chicago, owned by a woman named Rebecca Langston, a name that carried power, wealth, and fear in equal measure. The pay was barely enough, but the hours were endless. Weeks blurred into one another as deadlines stacked higher and expectations grew sharper. Matthew stayed late every night, logged in on weekends, and answered emails with trembling fingers while Noah slept beside him on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that once belonged to Matthew's late wife, Hannah. Since Hannah's passing 3 years earlier, Matthew had learned to live with a quiet ache that never fully healed. Grief became part of the rhythm of his days, something he carried like a second spine, holding him upright while slowly wearing him down. He never spoke about it at work. He never complained when new tasks landed on his desk late Friday nights. He never explained why he sometimes looked worn beyond his years. To the company, he was just another remote employee, efficient, obedient, replaceable. To Rebecca Langston, he was a name on a productivity report, one that showed impressive output and zero resistance. Rebecca's world could not have been more different. Raised in privilege and trained in ambition, she built her empire with relentless focus. Her days were filled with meetings, acquisitions, and decisions that moved millions of dollars without a second thought. She believed pressure revealed character and that exhaustion was simply the cost of success. Somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing people and started seeing performance. Matthew Carter was one of her highest performers, and so she pushed harder, assigning more work, expecting faster results, never questioning what it took to deliver them. The weeks of overwork took their toll. Matthew's health began to fray, his patience thinning, his body aching in ways he could no longer ignore. One night, after Noah fell asleep mid-sentence while talking about a school project, Matthew stared at his son's peaceful face and felt a wave of guilt crash over him. He wondered how long he could keep going like this, how long before his son noticed that his father's smile was becoming forced, that laughter was growing rare. Still, he kept working, driven by love and fear in equal measure, determined not to let his child feel the instability he himself felt every day. Everything shifted the night Matthew collapsed at his desk during a late virtual review. The incident triggered an internal report that finally caught Rebecca's attention in a way no performance chart ever had. For the first time, she looked beyond numbers and saw a human cost. She requested his file, then his background, then more details than she had ever bothered to seek about any employee. What she found unsettled her: a widowed single father, no support system, medical warnings ignored, overtime logged far beyond reasonable limits. For the first time in years, Rebecca felt something unfamiliar pressing against her carefully ordered life, a quiet discomfort that refused to fade. She could have handled it through formal channels, sent an assistant, approved some leave, and moved on. Instead, driven by something she could not fully name, she flew to Ohio without telling anyone. She rented a car, drove through quiet streets, and stood outside Matthew's apartment building long after the engine went silent. When she knocked on his door at midnight, she was not the billionaire CEO. She was just a woman facing the consequences of her choices. Matthew did not know what to do when he realized who stood before him. Shock gave way to confusion, then to a raw honesty he had long buried. In the dim hallway, surrounded by peeling paint and the faint smell of old carpet, something in Rebecca shifted as she took in the reality of his life. The small space, the tired eyes, the quiet dignity of a man who had given everything and asked for nothing. She stayed only a short time that night, but when she left, she carried with her a heaviness that no luxury car or private jet could outrun. In the days that followed, changes came swiftly. Matthew was granted paid leave, medical support, and flexible hours he had never dared to request. More importantly, he was seen. Rebecca did not disappear back into her world untouched. She called regularly, not to check productivity, but to ask how he and Noah were doing. She listened as he spoke about his fears, his exhaustion, and the love that kept him moving forward. Through those conversations, Rebecca confronted parts of herself she had long ignored, the loneliness behind her success, the cost of treating life like an endless competition. As weeks turned into months, both lives began to heal in unexpected ways. Matthew regained his strength, finding joy again in simple routines, in school mornings and bedtime prayers with Noah. Rebecca, changed by what she had witnessed, restructured her company policies, prioritizing humanity over relentless profit. She visited Ohio again, this time in daylight, attending one of Noah's school events quietly, witnessing the laughter she had almost helped take away. Just before the ending of this story, take a moment and comment below with the word kindness if you believe compassion can change even the hardest hearts. The final transformation came not in grand gestures, but in quiet consistency. Matthew was offered a permanent position with reasonable hours and genuine respect. Rebecca found purpose beyond numbers, learning that leadership carried moral weight. Their lives remained different, but forever connected by one midnight knock and the courage to face truth. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that empathy still matters in a world driven by speed and success, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and let us know in the comments. Sometimes, the smallest acts of humanity arrive at our door when we least expect them, and they change everything.